Wait. A pineapple is the mass individual of berries fused to a central stalk. If you want to be technical about it, pineapples are a berry.
Weird.
And guess what today is?
I'm going to guess it's a +1 edition.
+1 edition.
+1 edition.
I really need to come up with a sting for that.
Yeah, because we're going to be doing it a lot. 75% of all pineapples sold in Europe are grown in Costa Rica. These are the top 15 countries that exported the most pineapples in USD throughout 2017, according to WorldStopExports.com. Costa Rica, US 980.6 million. 47.1 of the exported pineapples. Netherlands, 30.9 million, 11.1%. Philippines, 172.4 million percent. 4 million. Percentage is 8.3. Belgium is 110.4 million, 5.3%. United States, 97 million, 4.7%. Ecuador? I knew that. Ecuador. 44.2 million, 2.1%. Honduras, 41.1 million, 2%. Mexico, 41 million, 2%. Taiwan, 37.3 million, 1.8%.
Ghana, yep.
Ghana.
It's a country in Africa.
Ghana. Like Afghanistan?
No, it's Ghana. It's just...
Just Ghana?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
You're fine.
36.3 million, 1.7%. Spain, 32.8 million, 1.6%. Okay, I can't read that in Spanish.
Côte d'Azur?
Yep, probably. IVORE.
No.
D'Ivoire.
Oh, Côte d'Ivoire. The Ivory Coast.
Yes,
Oh.
there you go.
Yeah. 32.2 million, 1.5%. Portugal, 29 million, 1.4%. Panama. Thank you. 18.9 million, 0.9%. Italy, 18.7 million, 9%.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Rome is it was in Italy. I don't know if it's still in there. It's now a place to visit, not a state, but...
Interesting. Thank you for all those pineapple facts. I will appreciate pineapples more as I shove them down my gullet. I did not think I was a big fan of berries, but I am a big fan of that one.
Well, there you go. Strawberries aren't actually strawberries. They're not berries.
You're not a berry. You aren't.
Okay.
I don't actually know if they're berries or not. I haven't researched that one.
So, let's talk about where this story takes place, which is just outside of a town in Missouri called Cape Girardeau.
Cape Girardeau.
Now, Interesting fact, Cape Girardeau was one of my first professional gigs as a stand-up comic, so I have a lot of love for the town. I have been there a few times to perform. It is a couple hours south of St. Louis, Missouri. Actually, it's between 2 and 3 hours south. If you are exiting Missouri to the southeast, and from Kansas City you go to St. Louis, and then you head south and go through Cape Girardeau, it's a good 7 hours. It takes a minute to get out of Missouri that way. And you find they're not fun.
And Missouri has hills.
Hills.
Some of those hills are pretty damn rocky, I'm just saying.
I agree.
So originally, Cape Girardeau was a trading post on a large rock that jutted out into the Mississippi River, run by a former French soldier named Jean-Baptiste de Girardeau, and that was spelled Girardot.
Okay.
This became known as Cape Girardeau because it stuck out into the river, so they called it a cape. So it was really kind of a mocking thing, but everybody was like, if you need stuff and you're on the Missouri River, go to Cape Girardeau. Eventually, it became a stopping point for the Lewis and Clark expedition, not too long before they found the eventual site of what would become Fort Osage.
Yes.
So this episode ties into that one kind of in a weird way.
It does.
Somewhere around this time, they changed the spelling of Girardeau from the Girardot to Girardeau.
Yes.
Good for you. I prefer saying it up and down. Like, keep it one way. You're gonna make me upset, please.
It became a place where steamships regularly docked, and in fact, Samuel Clemens docked the Nebraska here many times before he left the steamship industry to start writing as Mark Twain. And today, Cape Girardeau is a smallish city of just 40,000 people. It is located in southeast Missouri, just off the Mississippi River. Furthermore, strange lights and unidentified aerial phenomena have been regularly reported there since the 1950s.
Cool.
So that is Cape Girardeau. Now, the other person we really need to talk about before we get too far into this is Reverend William Huffman himself. Now, Reverend William Huffman was trained by the Southern Baptist Convention. He traveled from town to town establishing churches or strengthening existing churches. He was a pastor that got sent from place to place, partly because he was charismatic and good with people. He was also skilled at getting donations for churches and becoming a fixture in communities where he was sent. He was known to be a solid clergyman and skilled in dealing with people. This is the guy that kind of kicks off this story. So that's who we're discussing tonight. Now, before we get into the story itself, it is now time for a word from our sponsors.
Sponsors already? Man, this story's flying by.
Yeah.
I know. It's just going.
As long as it doesn't crash, we're in good shape.
But yeah, although at some point it has to, because it's a story about a crash. But
okay then. So sponsors?
Sponsors.
Can we feel sponsored now?
Yep, we can.
All right.
All right, so let's tell the story. On an evening early in April in 1941, around 9 p.m., Reverend Huffman gets a phone call explaining that there's been an accident out in the country and he's needed to perform last rites. He gets his gear and his Bible, and a driver picks him up a few minutes later. He drives through town and then some ways south towards a city known as Sykeston. The crash actually happened on the southern end of Cape Girardeau, almost as close to Sykeston as it is to the Cape Girardeau itself. But so some type of places.
So I kind of have a question already. I'm sorry to mess with your flow. So they called him to do Last Rites. You went over that when we first started.
Right.
First time. How did they know that the victims of the crash were religious?
Well, I don't think they did, but it was the 1940s, and that's just what you did. You had, I mean, still to this day, they will get Army chaplains and whatnot to do last rites for victims of plane crashes.
Okay, I guess that's fair. Go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, it's fine. I would have looked into that a little more. I didn't even think about it. So thank you for asking the question. Now, he drives through town and then some way south to farmland, which normally grows wheat or hay, but the ground is torn up from the crash, and there are places that it's on fire, right?
Right.
So the first thing he notices is the craft itself, which is, or was, round and silver, and unlike any flying machine he had ever seen. Then he was directed to the bodies. 2 of them were unmoving. A third was taking short, small breaths in a rapid fashion. He went to the one that was still alive first and proceeded to give him last rites before moving on to the 2 that were already dead. The description of these creatures is uniform. Large black eyes, no hair, no visible ears, 2 small slits for a nose, and a wider slit below that for a mouth, wearing suits of wrinkly, metallic silver. They had pale skin. So this is a pretty classic description. And if you believe any of this at all, to borrow a phrase from Astonishing Legends, the description we have of aliens ties in with Betty and Barney Hill and the Roswell crash, but we're years ahead of both of them.
Fair enough. Yeah, it sounds like some Gray's descriptions, basically, right?
Right. And the usual skeptical explanation is, well, creatures like that appeared in an episode of a show called The Outer Limits, and that's why they look the way they do, and Betty and Barney Hill made it up, and people keep hoaxing it all this time since. Which is really dumb, but whatever. Now, after that, he goes and checks out the craft a little bit because he's done, but apparently his driver's not ready to take him home, or he can't find his driver, but he's there for a minute. Or maybe they just needed to wait around for someone to say, hey, it's all clear, you can all go home. So he peers into the interior of the ship, seeing a silver chair set in front of a large bank of gauges and buttons and lights. And he can't even begin to imagine what any of these do. Now, he also noticed a couple of photographers on site. One of these using one of those large cameras of the time period. I believe it's called a Graflex. It was if you've seen any old movies in black and white where the reporters had those big cameras.
Mm-hmm. Like Jimmy Olsen taking pictures.
Yes, this was it's that kind of camera. It was the preferred camera of the professional photographer in that era.
Gotcha.
And so these guys are carrying around these big cameras strapped to their necks, and they're taking pictures of whatever. Now, one of them was taking a picture of one of the dead bodies being held up between two guys dressed in business clothes. They were holding it up, so it was like standing, kind of like